We're learning Tanya. We're starting today, chapter 13 in Igeres HaKodesh on page Kuf Yutes. Just a brief introduction. This letter was written in approximately 1792. 1792. Travel in those days was very difficult, as you can imagine. For a Jew, a Chassid, to go see his Rebbe, it wasn't like getting on a Spirit flight or a JetBlue flight and going from Florida to New York or to LA or wherever. It was a major event. And usually, if you got to your Rebbe once a year, you were a very happy camper. Now, as travel became easier, 100 years later, some people got there twice a year. But until really the travel boom, traveling to a tzaddik was not an easy endeavor. And in fact, many times you would walk part of the way or most of the way, and then you would hitch a ride on a wagon. And this was the way people did it. My father-in-law told me he remembers when he was a little boy in Kharkov, Ukraine. He remembers going on a wagon with his father. I don't know if he was going to the Rebbe then, but he remembers the scene, and he described it to me. It was like so real. Here's my father-in-law, here in America, and he's telling me about something from 1932 or 33, So imagine in 1792. Now finally, when you got to the Rebbe's Hoif means the courtyard, right? Where did you stay? Whether you were there a day, 2 or 3, or a week, 2 or 3, whatever, where did you stay? Well, you stayed with people who hosted you, but they hosted you and you paid them usually a few kupkis, a few pennies. So it was a good partnership because they needed the money and they were able to put you up. And trust me, it wasn't even a 2-star hotel accommodations, whatever, and they gave you a little food. But some of them didn't have food to give you. They maybe can give you some straw to lay your head down and sleep at night. So what the Alter Rebbe did is he created what's called a fund for visitors who come to him to have food, like a soup kitchen. That needed money. This letter is about the shaliach, the messenger that the Alter Rebbe sent to various communities throughout Russia and Ukraine to raise money for this fund, as well as Pidyon Shvuyim. The other item that was very prevalent, an issue that was very prevalent at the time, was non-Jewish landowners. If the Jewish owners of businesses didn't have the rent on time, they would punish them by throwing them into jail, into dungeons. We read about it in these Hasidic stories like fables, but it's true. Pidyon Shvuyim means the redemption of the captives. So why were they captives? Why were they Shvuyim? Because they couldn't pay their rent. Just giving you a general idea. So you needed funds to get them out of jail. So the Alter Rebbe made this fund, which this letter is alluding to as well, to raise money for this fund so that people should be able to, if they don't have their rent, either pay their rent to begin with or get them out of jail. So this is a letter that was written early on, in a sense, before the Alter Rebbe formalized in a public, massive way the philosophy of Chabad because that started after Yutas Kislev 1798, right? And this is 1792. But nevertheless, he was in charge of people of Hasidim who came, and he wanted to take care of them. So this is what this letter is about. Now, the end of the letter, there's another part that's not printed here, but it's printed in his letters, which we have in the book of letters of the Balatanya. And the Rebbe has a remark at the end of this chapter telling us about that, and we'll talk about it when we get there. So let's start now on page Kuf Yutes, which is opposite page 236. Yud Gimel. Morav Tuvcho Asher Tzofanto L'Reyecho. This is a verse in Psalms, in Tehillim 31, chapter 31, I believe. Morav Tuvcho. How abundant is your goodness. King David HaMelech, is praising God, the author of the Tehillim. And so good, so abundant is your goodness, Asher Tzofanto L'Reyecho, that you have hidden it, you've hid it, put it aside and hid it, L'Reyecho, for those that fear you. And what does that mean? That means that there's such goodness that Hashem grants a person for doing certain things that it's too good to just have available every day. There'll be a time when it will be revealed. The next part, one second. The next part of the verse is whoever shields himself in you, God, hopes in God, and neged bnei Adam, it'll be towards man, it'll be revealed. So the Baal Tanya's question is, there's a contradiction between the first part of the verse and the second part of the verse. The first part of the verse says it'll be hidden, and the second part of the verse that he doesn't actually cite here, he alludes to it with the words Vigoimer. Vav Gimel Vav stands for Vigoimer, etc. But why the Alter Rebbe doesn't bring it, I don't know. But that's the question. The question that he's looking to answer is here. We have kind of a contradiction between the first part and the second part. Although he doesn't bring explicitly the second part, he alludes to it. Yes, sir, what do you want to say?
Isn't it pashut that it's the Or HaGanuz?
Sorry?
Isn't it pashut that this is the Or HaGanuz?
No, it's not. It's not.
Put away for the tzaddikim in the time to come. It's hidden, but it will be revealed.
Yes.
But only.
Yeah, but Isser, you know that because you learned in Rashi, in the beginning of in Bereshis and other places. But when you read the verse in Tehillim, it doesn't say that. You know comment. So you're saying it's pashut. No, it doesn't. Read the Tehillim and interpret it. You read the Tehillim. In one verse he says, "Morav tuvcha shetzafanta." How abundant is your kindness that you've hidden it away. And then the next part is kol ha'chosem bach neged bnei Adam. Means it's whoever shields in you. So that simple text, what you know is an explanation and a good explanation. I'm going to see if the Alter Rebbe goes on this way, and he doesn't. Okay, so that shows no, it doesn't contradict it. It's two different explanations, but I'm just showing for the fact that the Alter Rebbe has an entire chapter with an entirely different explanation than what you just said. That shows that it's not the simple text. Okay, so Moshe, is that clear? We have a contradiction in the verse between the first part and the second part. Is God's goodness revealed or is hidden? Which one? Make up your mind, David. David is praising God. So of course, what does a Jew answer? It's both. How? That's what he's here to explain. Let's go further. Hine b'chlal lo'ivdei Hashem. So the Rebbe says now that that he's answering the question already. He's saying basically there's two levels. But what he comes to introduce now is, you know why there's two levels? Because there's also two types of people, and there's two types of experiences. and it begins in God, and it manifests itself in man. And because there's two, therefore David, King David, David HaMelech, when he praises God, he refers to both. So let's see what he says. When it comes to people who are servicing God and the servants of God, there are two levels, chalukos, separate, completely separate levels. One is from the perspective of their soul, from the perspective of the soul above, and we say that these souls are associated with the right, Gemin. The smile on the left, the Hainu Sheprinas, smile Midas Atzimtzum Vaheste B'Avodas Hashem. What does the left represents? Concealment, contraction, control. The right represents giving. So there's a soul that manifests itself more in the giving, in the chesed, and there's a soul that manifests itself more in the restricting, holding back. The Hainu, yeah. As it says, you shall be modest in your walking and your going with God. Modesty representing quietness and humility, holding back. Another verse, he brings three verses. In the hiding, you shall cry. In other words, the expression of crying, of emotions, but do it privately, such a verse. And finally, whoever studies Torah quietly is praiseworthy. So there's three verses that he brings here to support the concept of the left. This quality of the left is the source for contraction and limitation. Ba'avodas Hashem, in service of God. And he says, for example, Kamoy, b'tzedakah, when it comes to giving charity. Liyas nizn behesik yad. A person gives what he has, but he doesn't have, he doesn't give. Number two, we learned earlier someone who splurges shouldn't splurge more than 20%. Ukahai gavna. 1 second. So what do we see? We find support in Torah writings to giving a limited amount. And don't give more than 20%. Give what you can. We find such a concept. So too, kahai gavna b'talmud Torah. So too, in regard to the study of Torah, Shara mitzvahs, all other mitzvahs. Dai loy sheyotzi dechavosoi michiyuv mefurish. It is adequate to fulfill the obligation shechayvoistoi Torah, that the Torah obligates a person to study Torah befeirush. By setting aside times. Moshe, do you know that it says, you're supposed to learn Torah day and night? The Midrash says this. We don't have a chance. Sorry, you got to do business. I got to live. I got to eat. So how do you reconcile the two? So the answer is set times to learn. Like this is called setting a time. We have a time from 2:45 to 2:45 to set times. That's called for you, Moshe, those times that you set that you're able to come. Kviyas itin. You've set a time to learn. Every time, those 2-3 days a week that you're able to come, that's set. It's a set in your inner clock. So we find that exempts you from learning Torah the rest of the day. Now you hear that amazing thought. In other words, let's say you're going to say, tonight I'm going to see Shalom. Shalom is a mutual friend of ours, right? We're going to learn. Very nice. But it's not set. If it's set, it's set. But let's say it's not set. Or tonight I'm going to go to Fabrenga. Tonight I'm going to listen to Rabbi Gordon. Or today I'm going to listen to Rabbi Gordon while I'm sitting and relaxing, whatever. Right? If it's a set thing, then it's called your set Torah study daily, which exempts you from learning all day Torah and doing other business and everything else you need to do. So what do we see here, sir? We see that within Torah study itself, the sages and Hashem says, I'm giving you a mechanism to limit yourself. Yes, you want to ask something, Moshe? You have your hand up. No. Okay. Pinas Yamin, Yoini, with the right side. What does Yamin? He midas chesed. It's the attribute of kindness, bispashtus b'avodas Hashem, with expansiveness in service of God. Bisrachvus beli tzimtzum v'hester klal. Such broadness without limitation, to give and to learn and to do, and not to worry. What's my wife gonna say? What's my boss gonna say? What's my kids gonna say? And what's pa. Just do and give. That's called hispashtus, expansion. Without any limitations and without any concealments. As it says, you shall walk in a broad way. Walk upright, meaning don't allow yourself to be limited. Just go and do. And from this attitude comes forth what the sages say, Zroik mora betalmidim, kind of put a fear into students. What does it mean, a fear? It means that I'm the teacher and you're a student, and there needs to be discipline. Just like the doctor was telling me, comes to medicine, he's the doctor, I'm the patient. You need to listen. You don't want to listen, don't go to a doctor. So, Zreik Mara b'Talmidim. When does the Talmud, when does the student feel more of I use the word fear, but it means, the reverence for the teacher, when the student sees this teacher is really broad, expansive, knowledgeable, etc. Today is the yahrzeit of the Mittler Rebbe Yoidi, the second Lubavitcher Rebbe, Reb Dov Ber. So there's a story. It's not a story. That on his desk there was always lots of coins, money, lots of money. And the question was why. So the answer was because when a person would come into him and ask for advice, and ask for what's called a tikkun, to correct certain things that the person did that wasn't right and all that, the Mittler Rebbe felt that the expansiveness, that the money, the coins cause a person that you don't have to worry about where your food's coming from and where your rent's coming from, added to the overall clarity of mind and clarity of soul so that he can administer the right soul advice for the petitioner, the chassid, the Jew who comes to seek his advice. Right? And if I may say so, I tell when shluchim and rabbis, they ask me to come speak for them, and they're going to pay me for what I do and all that. So I say, do me a favor. Take care of it before I arrive. I don't want to think about money when I come and do when I do my service. When I do my service, I don't want to think about money at all. So if we clear it up before and it's behind us, I give you full 100%. Now you'll say, well, you should give full 100% even if not. You're right, but we're humans. We have a Yetzer Hara. And, and most people, they're somewhere in their psyche where they'll say, well, did I get paid? Did I get paid? When am I getting paid? How am I getting paid? You know what I'm saying? You don't want that. So the Mittler Rebbe having the money on his table, it wasn't because he was hoarding money and he needed money, but it brought an expansion to his consciousness. Okay, to use, I don't know, contemporary psychological or, terms. An expansion to his consciousness. So the Alter Rebbe says here that when you go with the attitude of expansion, of chesed, and there's no gavul and there's no limitation, then the recipient, the students, feel it and they see it and they have more respect. Basically, when you come in weak, you're perceived as weak. When you come in strong, but you're really strong, not a faker and not a boaster and not a bluff, but you really are strong and you really are refined and you really are a master, the recipients hear it, see it, smell it, feel it, and they grow from it. Okay. And I'm not talking about in a bragging way, I am the teacher, I am the professor, and but you have to listen to me. I'm the doctor, I'm the rabbi. That's arrogance. Let's continue. He says, V'gam belitzim tzumavul klal, and this attitude leads to having no contraction and limitation at all. Ve'ein metzer leruach nitvosai, and there is no prevention to the spirit of his generosity. Ve'ein b'tzedakah, whether it be regarding giving charity, tzedakah. Ve'ein b'talmud Torah, whether it be regarding studying Torah, v'shara mitzvahs, and all other mitzvahs. V'loi dai le'lotzei shidei b'chol b'asi b'lvad, and such a person, it is not sufficient for them to fulfill their obligation by saying, I met my quota. Ela ad bli dai. There's a Chabad song, Varikoisi lochem bracha, ad bli dai. It's a verse, and I will give you blessing. I'll pour to you blessing. What kind of blessing? Ad bli dai. Ad bli dai, ad bli dai, 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 dai. Ad infinitum, no end, no measurement. Now, Alter Rebbe is saying over here, we have two types of servants of God. Some people live their life in a measured way. Now think about it. A time is a time, and it's like everything is, we say in Yiddish, ausgerechnet, Yoini, ausgerechnet. Figure it out, And what happens when it's not, punkt means exact, and figure it out? You flip out, you freak out, and you get nervous, and you get upset. You told me you're going to be here at 8 o'clock, and it's 8:10. It's one type. This is not an excuse to come 8:10. We're supposed to come 8 o'clock. But we're talking about the internal clock of man. Some people, their internal clock is very meduyak. Meduyak means precise and punctual. Because they're limited. They're limited. And it's not, and by the way, it's not a chesaron. It's not a deficiency. That's who they are. But that's who they are. Some people, a clock to them is a black hole. Some of us with the wives and the husbands and the kids, a simcha. Simcha is called for 8 o'clock, an engagement, a chasana, and you show up 9 o'clock. Why? Your internal clock says to yourself, if you come 8, you're out of your mind. People are not going to be there. I'm going to be there too long. It's like, I can't come on time. Now, where does that come from? So sometimes it comes from a balagan. A balagan meaning confusion and chaos. Like you don't have your life together. sometimes it comes from a deep place inside that's expansive, broad. Now you see, it's very important to know this when you pick a spouse, when you pick an employer, when you have a choice to pick, not when you don't have a choice to pick. Your kids, you don't have a choice to pick. Whatever God gives you, that's what they are. But there too, it's important to focus in. What type of person is this child versus this child? And you'll find such differences from night to day. And you need to understand it and work with it, accept it, and go, right? So the Alter Rebbe over here opens up the door and says that in general, before we could talk about the hidden good and the revealed good and what's going on, let's talk about the overall concept of being limited versus being expansive. This is what he did in this section so far. Tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem, we will learn the continuation. Everyone have a great day.
There's a third option.
And that is?
When it talks about time, right, it's cultural. It's Jewish time. You can't be at the chasana at 7 o'clock because 7 o'clock is regular time, but 9 o'clock is Jewish time.
Well, Yaini, I'm a Jew and I come on time, and I'm sure others do too. So, but I know what you're saying, but Yaini, it's not, I disagree. It's not Jewish time. That's what people like saying. There are Jews that come, what?
More like the Amna Shava Rebbe. I heard somebody went to Motzi Shabbos, went to his Shalosh Shudas, and they were seeing Karibon. And this fellow was from Amna Shav. Says, I don't remember my father and my uncle ever singing Karibon at Shalosh Shudas. And they said, oh, the Rebbe's holding Leil Shabbos. He just made Kiddush. He's machmir to make Kiddush before Shkia on Shabbos.
Okay, but that's Avodas Hashem. That's a certain exactly, but that's a certain service. That's not, it's not because I don't think it's because he's that type of a person. It has to do, I think, with a certain style in Avodas Hashem that the this Amshinover chooses. Okay, Chevra, have a great day. See everyone tomorrow, Mitzvah. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Shalom.